Why is prostitution considered as a form of slavery?
Well, many people discuss that prostitution can be considered as an occupation, and people actually agree to the terms and conditions of what they are doing. But the reality is that in many different cases, people are forced to accept those terms and conditions. So what they are doing is out of their own freedom of choice. And that's what makes it the concept of slavery.
But when it comes to slavery, it's simply said that sometimes they are not paid, because if they are paid, they are not considered as slaves, are they?
Yeah. One matter is if somebody is paid or not, but the other matter is that did they choose how much they are going to be paid or not, and is it forced labor or not?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ali. Mr. Ali, according to the text by Rick Esther, Sex Slaves, okay, and the documentary itself, how do you relate that to Article 4 of Human Rights, and what can be interpreted from that?
Well, Sex Slaves is, as it is described here, is a documentary that won numerous awards. It's been filmed through reality of what is happening to the victims, and it was really hard to film. And when I was watching the documentary, and after I read the text of Marina Lavichka, I felt that it's not only sex, it's not only a kind of abuse, it's not only prostitution, it's human trafficking which is making all the problems. And we call it human trafficking today because why people call slavery, I mean, when we hear the word slavery, mostly our mind goes back to the time before when there were no automobiles and no smokes and nothing, and people were somehow torturing each other to do the labor. But if we look around ourselves, there are many things that are taking away the freedom of people and forces them to do things. The only different thing is that it's in a kind of modern way of being done, so nobody really thinks about that. But if we bring prostitution to the matter of slavery, we can see that it could be seen as a kind of sex slavery, and it's completely proved as a modern type of slavery.
But there's a very thin line between that, isn't it? I mean,
yes.
Between the word slave and prostitute.
Yes, there is a line, and it's a kind of edge, and it's hard to cross. But what is happening is that the type that the person does the prostitution, the terms and conditions, the situation that the person is put inside makes it to be considered as slavery or not.
I see. All right. Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Ali. All right. I would like to open questions to the floor. Anyone who has any questions, feel free to ask Ms. Lily and Mr. Ali.
Let me start first here. Good morning to both presenters. Thank you for such enlightening presentations and discussion. We were just discussing Dr. Samarani about the choice of works and also the idea of prostitution as a business and whatnot. There's something that I feel that needs a little bit of explanation is your rationale in using those two works in your paper. Could you please explain? I think Lily has used the time very well in explaining. I think you should be given that liberty to explain why these two works in particular. Ali?
Marina Lavichka's work was chosen because of the matter of the Article 4 in Human Rights, which says that no one shall be held in slavery or servitude. Slavery and the slave trade shall be prohibited in all their forms. Well, when we think about the article, there is a concept that makes us think that everybody should be free to do whatever they want and not forced to accept any kind of condition. when I read this and I went to Marina Lewiczka's text, I mean, Marina Lewiczka's text is a kind of unusual text to me because it's not told from the point of view of a victim, it's told from the point of view of an abuser. And that abuser is somehow confessing of abusing those girls, while he does not think of them as unuseful objects and unthoughtful people. He thinks of them as smart people who are not safe to be given the choice of thinking, because they can think and they can find a way and they can analyze and they can find concepts in their mind. So instead, they have to be abused, they have to be tortured in order not to think and only obey. Of course, when I went through the text, it's a very, very short text and it was not enough. So I went through literature to find other texts, but rarely I could find something that fit Marina Lewiczka's short story. There are many texts about prostitution, but they are not about abuse. They're mostly about the job itself, confining the occupation. But what came to my mind is that a base of movie industry is literature, and there are documentaries which are based on literary texts and searches. So I found Sex Slaves. It was a very contemporary thing, made in 2009, I suppose, and it won numerous awards because of the point of reality it is taking out, and it was showing somehow, in most of the parts, it was showing the reality from the point of view of abusers who didn't know they are filmed for a reality show. They were in the situation, and you can find similarities between the things those people are saying in that documentary and things which are told in Marina Lewiczka's text. That made me think that they can relate and they can be worked on.
Good morning. First of all, I would like to congratulate the class for coming up with this good seminar. Very impressive. I just wish that there are more people who attend this seminar. Well done, with the guidance from Dr. Abaya. Well, I've left literature quite some time ago when I was in my first year at university, although I still have interest in it. I'm interested in, Ali, your study on, I think you're doing a comparison between these two works, right? By these two writers. Of course, I'm not sure of the full contents of the story, but from the title, I could see that, there are two perspectives here. One regarding as the business philosophy, whereas the other as sex slaves. I mean, my suggestion here, I don't know, because I do work on cognitive metaphors, that it would be interesting perhaps for many of you to take up, where you can look at the conceptual metaphors that have been embedded in these two works to see how this business philosophy and sex slaves are actually portrayed, maybe not portrayed, when you work in the cognitive semantic field, you want to see how these writers portray their thoughts through the conceptualization of these two concepts. One as a business philosophy and the second sex slaves. Because it would be very interesting what words are used. So it involves stylistics, looking at stylistics as well. And I think there would be a good work, because there's not much work.
Well, what I was planning to do, what I started to do was a kind of formalistic reviewing on the text and the movie. I chose formalistic approach because it's one of the most common in analyzing movies, which can be used in literature. There are many other different approaches could be applied to literature that could not be really applied to the movie. So I just gave them up. And the first thing I searched about was the international law and the conflicts they had. And the first thing comes to mind is that why am I considering prostitution as a form of slavery? Actually, it's not a defined term. I mean, it's not in any dictionary that considers prostitution as a kind of slavery. It's more of a concept. That's why I'm looking at it. It's just in the mind. I mean, if you go and search about people who are doing the business, they would not consider themselves as people taking others to slavery because they have contracts, they have signatures. But the situation that those contracts are taken, as the text and the documentary will tell us, could give us a concept that it is a form of slavery and it is worth to work at. But yeah, I do agree with you.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you very much to our first panel, Mr. Ali and Miss Lily. Okay, congratulations.